Hi folks, my name's Alex White, or as my students call me, Doc White. I'm on the dairy science faculty at Virginia Tech, but I also teach personal financial planning courses here at Tech. The good folks at the three North Carolina Farm Credit Associations have asked me to spend a little time to give you some tips on improving your personal financial situation for this summer. And I don't know about you, but as hot as it's been around here, that Howlin' Cow ice cream's looking pretty darn good right about now. So let's get the legal stuff out of the way first. Here's my disclaimer. I'm simply an educator. I am not licensed to provide specific financial, legal, or tax advice. I simply talk about the educational aspects of personal financial management. I talk about the advantages and disadvantages of different products, but I do not give specific advice. Please talk with qualified financial professionals as needed if you have more detailed questions or before you make significant changes to your financial plan. So, what's a good starting point to talk about your personal finance this summer? Well, let's focus on the important things in your life. If you get a good handle on these, this will give you clearer direction in the decisions that you make. And I've kind of boiled these down to what I call the fundamental F's. To most people, the most important things in their life are their faith, their family and friends, their food or their nutritional aspects of their life, their finances, their fitness or their exercise level, and their fun or their entertainment, things that give them joy in life. Take some time and just think of these things, which ones are the most important to you, and let's set up a financial plan that's going to help maximize your enjoyment of those things. Another way to look at this comes from Dr. Mike Hester, who was a relationship counselor in North Carolina, and he talks about your MEDS for being healthy. MEDS is an acronym for meditation, exercise, diet, and support. Dr. Mike says, you know what? Take 30 minutes a day and just shut your brain off and think about absolutely nothing. This gives your brain time to rest and recharge. That'll make you more peaceful. It'll help you make better decisions. Dr. Mike says exercise for 30 minutes a day. Get a good sweat going. This will help you both mentally and physically. From a diet standpoint, the better your nutrition, the better your health. Again, both physical and mental. And with support, get help when you need it. Know what help is available is in the form of mentors or counselors or advisors, and use that to help improve your situation in life. So my first tip for you on improving your personal finances is go out there and start your own video production company. Get a video camera or your phone and record all of your household belongings. Walk through room by room, videoing all of your belongings. While you do it, tell a running narrative. Where was it purchased? When was it purchased? Who gave it to you? If it's a family heirloom, who made it or where it came from? This will make it a lot more fun, but it also make it a lot more useful in the case of an insurance need or from an estate planning standpoint. This video list of all your belongings will come in very handy in the case of a homeowner's or renter's insurance situation. Say there's theft or fire or flooding. Now you have proof of all of your assets. From an estate planning standpoint, this process will help you see all of your belongings. It'll help you think what you want to happen to them as far as gifting or inheritance. This will make life easier on your survivors. You can also go online and get some household inventory apps. Most of them walk you through your house again on a room-by-room basis, where you list all of your belongings and give a little bit of detail about how many you have, what the value is, and so on. These household inventory apps will be very useful from an insurance and an estate planning standpoint. While you've got your video camera out, go ahead and video the contents of your wallet or your purse. This will make it so much easier in case your wallet is stolen or lost. You'll know which credit cards you need to cancel. You'll know which documents you'll need to replace, such as your driver's license or social security card. It will make your life easier. Next tip, review or revise your health insurance policies. We need to think about who needs to be covered and what needs to be covered as well. As far as who needs to be covered by your policy, if you have a spouse and dependents, well, let's see if it's better to have them covered under your policy or their own personal policy. With your dependents, any child under age 26 who is not full-time employed can still remain on your health insurance policy. And what I'm seeing with some of my students, they are allowed to stay on their parents' policy even if they have full-time employment, but they're under the age of 26. So talk with your insurance agent to see how long your children can stay on your policy. Next, Ask yourself what needs to be covered. Have you had significant health changes over the last 6 months? Or we need to improve our dental or vision insurance. We need to think about your deductibles, what's covered, what's not covered. So take time and review your policies. When it comes to deductibles, remember there's an inverse relationship between your deductible and your monthly premiums. The deductible is what you pay out of pocket before the insurance company starts making their payments, but if you raise your deductible, we can lower those monthly premium payments, and this frees up cash for you throughout the year. However, if you do this, make sure you have enough money in your emergency savings to cover that deductible. 2 accounts you can set up to help pay your out-of-pocket medical expenses are flexible spending accounts and health savings accounts. With a flexible spending account, you can put up to $2,750 per year. This may get you some tax benefits, and this money can be used to pay your out-of-pocket expenses. However, talk with your HR personnel and ask if your FSA for your business or for your company is a use it or lose it plan. Use it or lose it says if you don't use all of that money that you have in your account by the end of the year, any remaining amount will be forfeited to your employer. So we need to be very careful. We need to plan out what our expenses are going to be for the upcoming year, and do not overfund your flexible spending account. Another option you have are health savings accounts. Most of these are not use it or lose it. So you can keep money in there from year to year. Every year you can put more in and build the balance. Health savings accounts are only available if you participate in a high deductible health plan. The money that you put into a health savings account may give you some tax deductions in the year you make the contribution, and the earnings of that account are not going to be taxed as long as the money is used to pay for qualified medical expenses. You can put up to $3,550 per person into the health savings account with a maximum of $7,100 for your family. Again, these are typically not use it or lose it. This is a very good way to pay your out-of-pocket expenses and get some tax advantages without having to forfeit any unused money. While I've got your policies out, let's look at those life insurance policies. First thing, check to make sure your beneficiaries are listed and they are accurate. If someone has died or gotten divorced or gotten married, you might want to update your beneficiaries. So let's make sure that they are listed and they are accurate. Next, we need to think, what are your life insurance goals? Why do you need life insurance? What do you want to be able to accomplish with the life insurance proceeds? The main reasons that most people get life insurance are, 1, to cover their final expenses, and I tell people to plan for $10,000 to $20,000 for those final expenses, for your funeral and all the arrangements and so on. Another reason to have life insurance is to pay off your debts at your death so that your survivors are not saddled with debt payments. This is relatively easy to figure out. Look at the amount of principal you owe today, and let's get enough coverage to repay all of that principal. However, please note you do not need life insurance for federal student loans. Federal student loans will be forgiven at your death, so you do not need life insurance to repay them. Another reason to have life insurance is to provide living income for your survivors. Think about this, at your death, they're going to lose your income, and there's going to be a transition period until they can get back on their feet and get back to a normal life. What a lot of people will do is say, you know what, I'd like to leave 2 to 3 years worth of salary for my survivors. This helps ease that transition process for your survivors and makes life easier on them. And there's other reasons to have life insurance. Goals such as providing for your child's education should you die, endowing a scholarship, leaving a gift to church and charity. These are going to be highly personal. And a general rule of thumb for determining the amount of life insurance you should have, and this is very general, but what we do is take your salary and multiply it by a factor of 5 to 10. For example, if your annual salary is $50,000 per year, that would say you'd need between $250,000 and $500,000 of life insurance coverage. That's a general rule of thumb, and we will adjust that depending on your specific life insurance goals. While we're at it, let's look at your retirement accounts. And people say, oh, the market's down from where it was 5-6 months ago. It's too depressing to look at. Well, let's not worry too much about that. I have faith in the markets. They'll come back eventually. But if you're under the age 60, don't worry. You've got plenty of time on your side. Hopefully, markets will come back in good stead by then. If you're within 5 years of retirement, I'm going to say go ahead and meet with an advisor, see if there's any moves you need to make, see if you have enough money to meet your retirement needs, and that the amount of risk that you're taking in your investments is appropriate for your situation. Now then, if you're more than 5 years away from retirement, let's go ahead and meet with an advisor as well. Let's start planning for your retirement as early as we possibly can. By doing it early, this means you need to invest less money and it will be easier to meet your retirement needs. So how much money will you need in your retirement account the day you retire? Well, this depends on an awful lot of factors, and I'm going to throw out some numbers that might seem a little bit scary, but if we start planning early, it's not hard to accumulate this cash. So someone who's currently around 25 to 35 years of age should plan on accumulating $3 to $4 million in their retirement account by the time they are ready to retire at age 65 or 70. Someone who is age 45 might want to think about $2 to $3 million, and somebody who is currently 55 years of age might want to try to accumulate $1 to $2 million in their account balance by the time they retire. You're saying that's a lot of money, and yes, it is. But again, if we start investing early, it's a lot easier to meet these goals. My numbers also assume there's no Social Security benefits, there's no sale of other assets to fund your retirement, and that you don't have any pension income from your employment. My financial assumptions here, you'll get a 7% annual rate of return. Annual inflation will average about 3%. You're looking at 30 years in retirement and an annual living expense that is equivalent to $60,000 in today's dollars. If you have a pension and you don't need $60,000 per year during retirement, these goals that I've put out can be significantly lowered. Now then, one way we can estimate this is to use a retirement planning worksheet that I've put together. In this one, we list how many years do you have until retirement and how many years do you plan on being retired. What are your estimates for the inflation rate before retirement and after retirement? And what nominal rate of return would you like your investments to average over that time frame? Then we put down what your annual pre-tax retirement living expense is going to be in today's dollars. In this case, it has $60,000, which says when you retire, you would be just as happy living off the same amount that $60,000 can buy you today. It goes through some calculations and figures out how much money you'll need to generate by the time you retire. There's other retirement calculators out there. A couple of them that I've seen quite a bit are dinkytown.net's Retirement Nest Egg Calculator and Bankrate.com's Retirement Savings Calculator. But there are several others out there. Go out and find a few, play around with them. If you'd like a copy of my retirement planning worksheet, email me at docwhite@vt.edu, and I'll be glad to send it to you. So when we're thinking about your retirement accounts and if they're going to meet your needs, we need to think, what are your sources of income going to be? Are you going to get money from a 401k type account? Are you going to get a pension from your employer based on the number of years of service you have? Will you have either traditional or Roth IRAs? Do you have a self-employed retirement account if you have your own business? This could be a simple or a SEP IRA. In addition to these retirement accounts, maybe you have real estate you're planning on selling or will have available to sell. Or you have some investments in taxable accounts. Or maybe you own rental properties. Or maybe you're going to continue to work and you have other streams of income during retirement. These will significantly impact the amount you need to meet your retirement needs. Another thing we need to look at is how are your funds invested? There's a very simple starting point for this, and that is your age is going to be the percentage of your retirement portfolio that's invested in the relatively safer investments such as bonds and bond mutual funds, certificates of deposit, money market accounts. 100 minus your age would represent the percentage of your portfolio that's invested in riskier investment assets such as stocks and stock mutual funds. This gets you in the ballpark. So say somebody's 25 years old, that would say 25% of their retirement portfolio would currently be invested in bonds or bond mutual funds, and 75% would be invested in stocks or stock mutual funds. Then we can take this and adjust it for your risk tolerance and your personal situation. Maybe you'll be expecting a military pension or a government pension or a large inheritance. That can significantly change these percentages. But it's an easy way to get started. And again, work with professional financial planners to make sure that your retirement investments are appropriate for your situation and your risk tolerance. Well, what happens if we look through and these accounts aren't going to meet our needs? We got a couple of different options. One, we can adjust your investments. You can try and take a little bit more risk to earn a higher rate of return. Typically, investments work that way. Something that offers a higher rate of return has more risk associated with it, which means its value or its price is going to fluctuate a lot more. So if you'd like to try and earn a little higher return, you'll have to invest in riskier assets. Will your personal situation and your risk tolerance allow you to do that? Another thing you might do is increase your contributions. If you work for a company that has a 401k type plan, such as a 401k, a 403b, or a 457, if you're not already participating, go ahead and start making contributions. This may actually qualify you for employer matching funds, which makes it easier to reach your retirement goal. If you're currently making contributions to these types of accounts, think about increasing that contribution. Just look at this, $20 a month extra into your account can grow to an additional $25,000 over the next 30 years. Wow, that's a pretty significant increase in your retirement account for simply adding $20 more per month. If you're already participating or maxing out your 401k plan, maybe you should consider opening an IRA, an individual retirement account. There are two different types, traditional or Roth. And with both of these, you can contribute up to $6,000 per year, or if you're age 50 or over, you can add another $1,000 for a maximum of $7,000 per year. As a rough rule of thumb, if you're in a low tax bracket now and you expect to be in a higher tax bracket when you retire, the Roth IRA makes a lot more sense. If you're currently in a high tax bracket and expect to be in a lower tax bracket when you retire, the traditional IRA makes more sense. But we need to look at some other factors. Those are just some rough rules of thumb. And here's a topic people don't really like to talk about, but they really should. Let's talk about estate planning or planning for the future. When you hear the term estate planning, a lot of people think of death and dying. They think about wills and trusts and all this kind of stuff. My definition of estate planning is protecting and controlling your assets while you're alive, at your death, and potentially after your death. And we can do this through the titling of our properties as well as some of these other documents. I think that everyone should have a durable power of attorney. This gives someone the legal right to take actions on your behalf. You can specify those actions. You can specify when they have the power to take those actions. So this could be that you're giving someone the legal right to use your checking account to write checks or cash checks or deposit checks, or to buy property or sell property. You can specify what specific actions they are allowed to take and when they have those powers. The North Carolina Department of Revenue has some sample forms for durable power of attorney at that website that you see. Similarly, we can set up an advanced medical directive. This tells everyone what level of health care you want when you need it. So when you go in the hospital, it tells the doctors, the nurses, the lawyers, and your family what level of care you want. If you want to keep it simple, there's two ends of the continuum here. You can say, A, take every action possible to keep me alive as long as possible, or B, keep me comfortable, let me phase out. It's a very personal decision that you get to make, but this tells everyone else what your decision is, what your wishes are should you need health care. Another important document for your estate planning is your will. If you have a significant amount of assets, a will may help you minimize your federal and state estate taxes, but if you have minor children or dependents, you definitely need a will. A will help you specify who you want to be the guardians for these dependents. If you do not have a will, a court is going to decide who the guardians of your dependents are, and that takes it out of the control of you and your family. And another thing to think about for estate planning is long-term care insurance. You may also hear this referred to as nursing home insurance or assisted living insurance. There's lots of different terms you'll hear out there. What long-term care insurance does is pay for the expenses that you have when you are no longer able to take care of yourself. Whether you're in an assisted living facility or you're at home, this pays for in-home care, it pays for care in the facility. I've been told that it's not uncommon for assisted living expenses to be between $70,000 and $90,000 per person per year in the Virginia, North Carolina area. So this long-term care insurance can protect your family from that huge cash distribution. So consider long-term care insurance. The sweet spot for getting long-term care is somewhere between your mid-40s and your mid-50s. If you get it before your mid-40s, you'll pay a lot of premiums over your lifetime that may not come in handy. If you wait until after your mid-50s or you're in your 60s, chances are the premiums are going to be too expensive for you to afford. So the sweet spot there's somewhere in your mid-40s and mid-50s. By taking these estate planning measures, it's going to clear things up and take the pressure off of your loved ones because you are making the decisions. You're not forcing them to make these decisions. Another thing you might do is check your credit history. You can check your credit history from all three credit bureaus, TransUnion, Equifax, and Experian, one time per year for free if you go to annualcreditreport.com. If you want to check your credit history more than one time per year, you can go to the individual credit bureaus, TransUnion, Equifax, or Experian, and purchase a copy from them. That may cost you anywhere between $8 and $30, depending on the form that you get. Another way of checking your credit history for free is creditkarma.com. This is a free website that gives you your credit reports from TransUnion and Equifax. These credit reports are updated about every 2 weeks or so. It tells you if anything has changed in your credit history. So this is a good site that is free of charge. It is meant as a public service website. So why do you need to check your credit history? Well, there was a news article on CNN several years ago that said that 70% of credit histories have a mistake as far as having an incorrect name or incorrect address or accounts that are not yours. And roughly 20% of credit histories have potentially damaging errors. I can tell you I'm living proof of this one. When I got my first auto loan, the business manager said, "Mr. White, we can make you the loan for the vehicle, but we can't give you the best interest rate because of your credit history." And I asked him, "Well, is it because it's my first loan and I hadn't borrowed money before?" He said, "Well, that's part of it, but also when you and your wife had your baby, you didn't pay $3,000 worth of medical bills." Well, that caught me a little off guard because I wasn't married, I had no child, I had no $3,000 of medical bills outstanding. There was someone else whose social security number was one digit different than mine. His outstanding debts got lumped on my credit history rather than his. So check your credit history, check it for accuracy, make sure that all the information is correct, make sure that all the accounts are yours, and we can make sure there aren't any negative comments that are not associated with your credit history. This could be from collection agencies, tax judgments, and so on that erroneously get listed on your credit history. Most of the credit bureaus have an investigate button on their website, so you can click on anything that doesn't look correct. They will investigate it and get back to you. When I've had to do this, normally within 3 to 5 days, I've gotten my answer and I've gotten the situation fixed. Another reason to check your credit history is that your creditors may not report your loans to all three of the credit bureaus. They may only report to one. So by checking all three regularly, we can get a better view of our current financial situation, and we can check for identity theft from all three bureaus. And one of the big comments I always get is, "Oh, I don't want to check my credit history very often. That's going to impact my credit score." Actually, it's not. Your credit score is not affiliated with the number of times that you check your own credit history. It is impacted by the number of times you let others check your credit history, though. My next tip for you is take some time out of your life and build a household budget. You know how long it's going to take? 15 to 30 minutes the first time you go through it. Sit down and estimate how much cash is coming in from your employment or other sources, how much is being withheld in taxes, how much are you saving or investing, and how much are you spending on food, utilities, loan payments, and so on. On average in the United States, it's about $5,800 per month for a typical household of 2.6 people, but this greatly depends on your lifestyle, on your geographic location, on your particular needs, your debt situation, and so on. So take some time out and just build a budget that shows your cash income, your cash outflows on a per month basis. Again, I've got a spreadsheet that'll help you do this. Mint.com is an app for your phone or your computer that allows you to set up a budget and track your expenses. And there's several other apps out there as well. YNAB stands for You Need a Budget, and this is a free program for college students. I think there's a fee after you graduate, and that's $10 a month, somewhere around there. But I've had a lot of students tell me it's really helped them get a good handle on their monthly expenses. So here's a quick shot of my family living budget. You see it has the main sections in there, and on the right-hand side, it has some rules of thumb for estimating what these numbers should be if you just have no other idea. So on your budget, list your income from all your sources. This is your wages, your salaries, self-employment earnings, gifts, inheritances, whatever it happens to be. I like to use gross income. This is before anything is taken out of your paycheck. Any taxes or any deductions are taken out. I like to know what my gross income is. Next, from that, I'll estimate what my income and my payroll taxes are. Income taxes may be somewhere in the range of 20% for a lot of folks. And payroll taxes, this is for Social Security and Medicare, are equal to 7.65% of your gross pay. If you're self-employed, that's doubled, that's 15.3%. So if you want to estimate your total income and payroll taxes per month, I usually use somewhere around 25 to 30% of my gross income. Next, let's list your desired additions to savings and investments. This is the pay yourself first principle. So once we know what our take-home pay is, let's set money aside before we spend anything else. If you pay yourself first, we're taking that money out, we're setting it aside. You'll see less money in your checking account, and when you see less money, you'll tend to spend less money. So we've saved money and we're using our remaining funds a little bit more wisely. If we wait to the end of the month and say, oh, I'll save whatever's left over, for too many people, there's nothing left over at the end of the month. So let's build this in up front before you make any of your other payments. So list the amount you want to add into your emergency savings, and we recommend shooting for 3 to 6 months worth of living expenses for your savings account. Put in what you're going to be contributing for your IRA. Do not have to include what your employer pays because that's your employer's money. Just list the amount that's coming out of your paycheck. And then list any other goals that you want to contribute to. This could be, again, your child's education or down payment for a car or a house. So this is going to vary by household. As a rough rule of thumb, I tell folks to aim for saving 10% of your gross income. This is a lot easier if we're going to get some employer matching funds. Hint, hint. So on my budget, the third section you'll see is planned savings and investments, and this is where we're going to put the amount we plan to add to these investments each month. The big section of your budget is going to be your expense section. This is where you list all your expenses for housing, food, medicines, transportation, entertainment, childcare, insurance payments, debt payments, and so on. So list your average expenses for the month. If you have a little bit of free time because you're not traveling, let's go back and look through our checkbook or look through our receipts and see how much we actually spent over the last month or so. This will give you a better feel for how much you typically spend on each item. When you're putting your budget together, build in your desired lifestyle. If you want to go out to eat or go catch a movie every week or every couple of weeks, let's build it into our budget on paper and see if we can afford it before we actually spend the money. And because we don't know exactly what our expenses are going to be, you don't know what gas prices are going to do or utility prices or food prices. So I like to build in a 10 to 20% fudge factor on my expenses to account for anything that's unexpected or any low estimates that I might have made. On my budget, down there towards the bottom on line F, it has the unplanned expenses or my fudge factor line. And here I'm going to take of my expenses, the ones that I'm not sure about, I'm going to add them up, multiply that by 10 to 20%, and add that fudge factor in there. This just builds in a worst case scenario for my budget in case I forgot an expense or I underestimated one. So if you've been home more because of the COVID situation, think about how your normal spending has changed over the last months. Hey, we have lower gas prices, but we aren't traveling as much in most cases, so we're not really able to take advantage of that too much. But chances are your transportation expenses have decreased over this time. What's happened with groceries? Are you buying more groceries yourself? Are you buying more takeout or using food services versus when you're buying meals at work or fixing your meals to take to work? How have your grocery expenses changed? Utility bills might have increased because you're home more. Your online purchases might have increased because you got bored and you just wanted to buy something to treat yourself. So think about how these things have changed and whether those are going to be permanent changes in your budget or if they're just temporary changes. We can try and rein in your expenses by doing a few simple little tasks. One, for your meals, let's plan for the upcoming week. Let's make a list for what you want to eat, how much you're going to eat during the week, and let's build a grocery list and let's go use that list and stick to it when we're in the grocery store. It's amazing when I go into the grocery store, if I'm hungry, I buy a lot more than's actually on my list. So don't go in when you're hungry, go in there after you've eaten your. Next, look for cheap or free entertainment out there. Go to the library and take out a book or watch some old movies on DVDs you can get from the library. If nothing else, go out for a walk and just look at the beauty of nature. It'll hopefully calm you down. It'll get you some exercise, get you some fresh air. Another tip for you, spend 30 minutes a day hunting for coupons. Just sort of get your newspaper out or get online, one of the coupon apps, and try and find coupons that you will use in your life. And then we can also look at the old fixing things versus the disposable society. Maybe it's going to be cheaper for you to fix something rather than throwing it away and buying a new one, at least in the short term. When it comes to expenses, I tell folks there's elephants and mosquitoes. Elephants are your big expenses. Let's call them your top 5, your 5 largest expenses. This is typically housing, loans, food, utility payments, maybe medical expenses. See if there's a way you can cut these expenses by 3 to 5%. That can have a significant impact on your budget. So let's put a budget together, identify your 5 largest expenses, and then sit and think of ways that we can reduce those expenses by 3 to 5%. On the other end of your budget are the mosquitoes. These are the little nickels and dimes, the dollar here, the dollar there. Let's think about this. If you go to a soda machine, you spend $1 a day for a soda. Well, that's $5 a week. Well, that's $20 a month. Well, that's $240 per year you're spending on drinks. Is there a way to cut back on that? So the mosquitoes, the little nickels and dimes, they're not going to have as big of an impact as if you can save 3 to 5% on these elephants, but they still add up over time. And one way to track your expenses is to use my daily expense tracker. This is just a simple form you fold up and put in your pocket, and every day of the week you write down every dollar you spend and what you spend it on. If you do this for 4 weeks straight, there's roughly 1 month's worth of living expenses that we can compare to our budget. The reason this is helpful is, one, when you carry it around, when you go to buy something, well, when you get to the checkout counter, you think, oh, I've got to write on that stupid piece of paper. Is it really worth it? You've just slowed down and thought about how you're using your money. Next, if you leave this thing out and somebody else sees it, now they're going to see how you spend your money. And to be honest with you, most people aren't real happy or proud about how they use their money. So this will help you consciously think how you're using your money. We can look at it. It makes it more visual. We can see the dollars that we're spending and total it up on a weekly and a monthly basis. Another tip for you is take time out to talk with your creditors. This is your credit card companies, your auto loan companies, your student loan companies, your farm loan companies. Talk with your creditors. Just have open, honest communication. Tell them what's going on in your life. If you think you're going to have trouble to making an upcoming payment, tell them ahead of time. They're much more willing to work with you. If you let them know ahead of time, they might defer some of the interest, or they might change you to interest-only payments for the next 6 months until the economy improves. They might actually refinance the loan by stretching it out over a longer number of years to give you lower monthly payments to make it easier to make your payments. So they are much more willing to work with you if you're open and honest with them. If you're going to have trouble making a payment, tell them ahead of time. And while we're on the topic of having trouble making payments, if you need a source of cash during this COVID situation, here's 5 or 6 different ways you can put your hands on cash. Number 1, let's use that emergency savings that I've been preaching for the last 20-some years. We always tell folks, try and build up 3 to 6 months worth of living expenses in a savings account so that if something bad happens, you can still make your payments over a 3 to 6 month period. Well, if we have that built up, let's use the money. This would be an emergency. So if you have that account, go ahead and use it. And if you do pull money out of your savings, let's go ahead and rebuild this account as soon as your financial situation improves a little bit. If you have a cash value life insurance policy, talk with your agent to see if loans are available. If you borrow the money from your cash value policy, there are no tax consequences. The only downside is if you don't repay the money back into your policy, the death benefit's going to be reduced for your survivors. If you have a 401k type plan, like a 401k, 403b, or 457, talk with your HR department. See if it's possible to take a loan from that account. Not all firms allow this, and there may be limits on the amount you can borrow, but as long as you repay this loan over time, there's no taxes and no penalties that you'll face. If loans are not possible, the government has said you can take up to $100,000 of hardship withdrawals from your 401k type accounts. These withdrawals will be taxed at your normal tax rate, but they will not levy that 10% penalty that normally applies for early withdrawals from these accounts. However, the government has said if you can repay the money that you withdraw within the next 3 years, they will waive any taxes. So this could be a possibility if you have money in your 401k and you'll be able to repay it over the next 3 years. If you have a Roth IRA, think about this. The money you put into the Roth was after tax, so that money's already been taxed. So you can always withdraw the principal that you put into your Roth IRA with zero taxes and zero penalty. However, you cannot repay the money into the account. You can just make your normal annual contributions. So this can have a significant impact on your retirement balance you'll have available at age of retirement. With a traditional IRA, your contributions went in before tax, so any withdrawals you make are going to be subject to income taxes. And if you haven't reached the age of 59 and a half yet, there will be a 10% penalty on the amount you withdraw. However, this is a possibility if you need to get cash today. Another form of cash is to cancel your cash value life insurance policy. When you do this, you will get the surrender value. This is how much cash is in the account minus a few fees here and there. However, because the earnings on a cash value life insurance policy are not taxed as long as the money stays in the policy, by canceling the policy, now those earnings will be subject to taxes. So this could take a significant amount of cash out of that surrender value, but it is a possibility. Talk with your insurance agent to see whether a loan or the surrender value makes more sense should you need to get cash from your policy. If you've received a stimulus check, hope you used it wisely. If you haven't received it, here's a website you can go on and find out more about the stimulus checks, whether you qualify for one, how much you should get, and who to contact in case you haven't received your check yet. There is talk that there will be a second round of stimulus checks. On the government websites, there is nothing official posted, but there's a lot more chatter out in the news that there will be a second round of checks coming within the next few months. If you do get the stimulus check or get money from somewhere, you got to ask yourself, what's the best use of that money? And when somebody asks me this, there's basically 5 uses for cash. The first thing you can do is use it to build your savings. Let's build up that emergency fund. Again, let's shoot for 3 to 6 months worth of living expenses in your savings account. Another thing we can do with that money is spend it. That's what the government hopes you're going to do because that will stimulate the overall U.S. economy. But when you spend it, let's focus on those urgent bills, okay? This could be your housing bills, your food bills, your medical bills, but let's spend it on something that is urgent and necessary for you rather than just impulse purchases. If you don't need to spend it on urgent bills, we can invest this money. We can set it aside not just from the savings account, but possibly we can put it into a retirement account or a taxable investment so that the money will be available for a future goal. A fourth use is to use this money to pay down your debts. If you have auto loans, student loans, farm loans out there, maybe you want to use your stimulus check and pay down that balance just a little bit. This will help reduce the amount of interest you'll pay over the life of the loan, and it'll get you out of debt a little bit quicker. And the fifth thing we can do with cash is give it away. Give it to church and charities. This way you're helping someone else improve their lives, and you may get some tax benefits from this as well. So those are the 5 things you can do with the stimulus check or with any extra cash you're getting these days. Save it, spend it, invest it, pay down your debts, or give it away. With that in mind, let's finish up here today. Just remember, take time to think about what are the important things in your life. We talked about the F's: your faith, your family, your friends, your food, your finance, your fitness, and your fun, and determine what's important to you, and let's set up your financial plan to maximize your enjoyment or your attainment of those things. Next, let's take stock of your current financial position. Let's do a household inventory. Get that video camera out and record everything that you own. Let's look at your insurances, your health insurance, your life insurance, and just make sure all those insurance policies are up to date. Let's look at your retirement account. Do you have enough money in your account? How is it invested? Are there other options for you? Where can you set more money aside? But let's look at this, and the earlier you start planning, the better off you're going to be. Let's look at your credit history. And I tell folks, let's check your credit history at least once a year from all three of the bureaus. But if you're in something like creditkarma.com, that's going to look at two of the three bureaus and give you updated credit histories about every 2 weeks. Let's take 15 minutes out of your life to put a monthly budget together for your household. For August, think about your upcoming expenses. What's going to be there? Are you going to have more back to school expenses? Are you going to travel a little bit? But let's think about what your expenses are going to be, and are you generating enough cash to pay these expenses? When you have your budget, let's look at those expenses and identify the elephants and the mosquitoes. Realize both of them can hurt you, but the elephants are going to hurt you faster. So look at the top 5 expenses and look for ways to decrease that by 3 to 5%, but then track all of your expenses so we can eliminate some of those mosquitoes as well. Like Dr. Mike's Meds, the S stands for support. Well, ask for help when you need it. Talk to your creditors. Maintain that open, honest communication so that if you come into a hard time and you're going to have trouble making payments, talk with them ahead of time. In most cases, they'll be more than willing to work with you if you tell them ahead of time. Talk with your HR department or financial professionals about your insurance policies, your retirement plans, your estate plan, and so on, to make sure that the moves you're making are going to lead you to the life that you want. And then finally, realize that for most people, money is not the most important thing. We need to just take a step back, reset our priorities. And one way to do that is just watch the beauty of the sunrise and the sunset every day. Marvel at the hope and the joy that it brings, and use that to just be happier in life and not worry quite as much about money. Well, folks, I think I'm about out of time. So with that, I'm going to sign off. I wish you the best of luck. I hope you stay safe and careful out there, and hopefully I'll be talking with you again soon. Take care. Bye.